Good morning, classroom family, and welcome to the end of your second last week of school. Today is Thursday, June 18th, 2020, and we are into our very last weekend together. I was thinking about that, and all the times in the agenda planner when we would wish each other a good weekend, or even now through the distance learning when I'd say, have a great weekend, see you Monday. Well, this time we'll say that, but a week from now will be the end of our final week together. So that makes this upcoming weekend, Saturday and Sunday, our very last weekend together as a classroom family. The time has passed really quick, and I just want to apologize right now if I sound a bit different or strange. It's because, well, this is also going to sound strange to you, I seem to have caught a cold. June is a strange time to catch a cold, but somehow, somewhere I did, and I'm a little bit under the weather, which means I'm not feeling my best. I just have a bit of a runny nose and I'm stuffed up. So I hope I'm clear in this video as I'm teaching and sharing some information with you. I have a tea to keep me warm and hopefully get me back to get on track. But I do want to say that I was in our classroom a couple of days ago and I have to return tomorrow to clear out all of the items. And if you went back today, you probably wouldn't recognize our classroom. It looks really, really different. It's completely dismantled. That means so much has come down. Things have come off the walls. Furniture has been moved and shifted. Materials have been packed up and away. So it looks like a very, very different space. So if you're at the school next September, when you're in grade 2 or grade 3, pass by the classroom and take a look in. And you'll have to store the memories in your mind, and you'll have to visualize what it was like, because it will look very different in September. All right, moving on to our activities, and I want to say something about these activities. They are being assigned for today, Thursday, and tomorrow, Friday, June 19th. However, this is probably your last load of really big learning. Next week, I will send some items, but they'll be more about summer and saying goodbye. This is the final stream of the distance learning material that I would like to kind of put in your pocket so you have it there next year in grade 2 or 3. And one thing I really want to start with is something in math, a final strand, and I did save the best for last, is probability. You've heard me say probability during the year, but we didn't get a chance to explore it since the schools have been closed. But I do want to take some time because probability is a fun math strand to explore. And I'm going to begin by sharing with you the PowerPoint slides that I have sent in your files. And I just want to remind you that these are printed and require a lot of ink when printed, so you don't need to go ahead and print them, all right? I'm just sending this for you to read, and while there are 2 problems or scenarios at the end, you can read them and just complete the questions orally. That means you can answer them with someone and give your responses without having to print these. This is just to help you with the other math activities I'm sending that are connected to probability. But please read through the slides. I'm going to go through them quickly. I won't read every single word, but I want to explain why I chose some of the images here on the opening slide. So you see someone asking questions, and you see a spinner. We're going to talk about spinners in a couple of minutes. And you see dice. Well, those are things we use or tools we use when we experiment with probability. So let's find out what probability means. So again, I hope you get the chance to read this, but I will tell you, probability really means the chance of something happening and how often or not the event will happen. So it really means, will something happen, won't something happen, and we never really get to find out the why all of the time, but sometimes we can do things to affect the outcome, what happens in probability. And this will become more clear as we talk about it. So probability means the chances of something happening and how likely that event will occur. We're going to go on and talk about some important vocabulary that you will learn as we explore probability. So you're going to either hear these words, you're either going to be reading them in your activities, and eventually you'll be owning them and using them yourself when you explain your work. So you'll hear the word equal a lot. You'll hear the word likely, unlikely, always, never, sometimes, most, least, fair, unfair, and random. All right? So those are some important words that you are going to come across as we learn about probability. Okay, so I mentioned probability experiments. I want to quickly talk about one that's mentioned in the first example. Let's use a simple one, like a quarter. Remember we talked about quarters when we explored coins? Well, because you're experts on coins now, you know that the quarter has two sides. One side has our Queen Elizabeth II, and the other side of the quarter is the caribou. Now, if I toss this coin in the air, how likely is it that it will land on either side? Well, it has a fair chance. That means there's fair probability. Because there are only two sides, it can only land on one or the other. So if I toss it, and let's do that right now. You can take a guess. You can predict. You can say, I think after it's tossed in the air, it will land on Queen Elizabeth II, or I think it will land on a caribou. So let's do this. And it landed on, Queen Elizabeth II, okay? Now, I could do that over and over, but can I control what happens once I toss it in the air? No, it's not up to me. It's up to probability, all right? And in this case, there's an equal or fair chance that it can land on either side of the coin. If I did that 10 times, what is the likelihood that it will always land on the queen? Well, I don't think that's too likely, but it could happen because, again, I cannot control the outcome once I toss it in the air. It might land on Queen Elizabeth II 5 times, and it might land on the caribou the other 5 times. But again, it's not something we can control. It's random. Random is when it happens without our involvement. It just happens on its own. Okay, so let's continue with the PowerPoint slides that you're going to receive in your files. So probability experiments involve things like coins, if you want, often things like marbles and spinners or other items. Another example is, I have some snap cubes here, and you're familiar with these in addition and subtraction, and I'm going to put them in a clear glass, and I'm just going to demonstrate what a fair arrangement looks like. Fair. If I put 2 red cubes and then 2 blue cubes, this is a fair arrangement. It's fair. Why is it fair, you're probably wondering? Because the chances of picking blue and the chances of picking red are equal. So if I were to close my eyes and select, and I'm going to tell you in a second what I got, I picked red. Let's try that again. Now, just because there are 2 red and 2 blue, it doesn't mean red will get selected once and blue will get selected next. I might pick red again, or I might pick blue again. But remember, I'm not looking in. This is random. I'm not controlling what happens. So here we go. Eyes closed. And I picked blue. So it worked out this way because both were represented in a fair way. However, now I'm going to show you what an unfair arrangement would be. If I place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blue snap cubes, and I add only 1, 2 red cubes, that is what we would call an unfair arrangement because there are more blue cubes, which means the chances of picking blue, even with my eyes closed at random, is greater. There is a higher likelihood of picking blue than there is red. Now that doesn't mean that I may not pick red. So I'm going to give it a toss and let's just see what happens. Because again, with probability, we don't decide. I'm going to reach in and I picked blue. All right? And that kind of makes sense because there are more blue in there to choose, but that doesn't mean red cannot be picked at random. Okay, let's continue with the slides. I want to talk about probability spinners because I think those are a lot of fun. And probability spinners can also be made fair or unfair. I'm going to give you an example of a fair probability spinner, and this is also connected to what we just learned about fractions. Do you see how the whole circle is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts? Well, we learned all about equal parts, and that's what makes it a fair spinner. It's fair because if I were to assign each part a color or a number or a word, the chances of landing on each would be equal. Now, how do you use a spinner? These are actually really easy to make. You can trace any plate this size, cut it out, and then all you do is take a pencil, and you see the center here? I'm going to make a little blue dot so it's more visible to you. All right, there's the center. I'm going to place my pencil down, but before I do that, let's clear the table so you can see that. You can take a paper clip or a butterfly clip like this, and you can play the game just by spinning it, and it's wherever it lands. So in this case, you can choose the pointer and it landed right here. So if this were a color, so let's say my spinner was divided into red, yellow, blue, and green, it would have landed on blue. And this is a fair spinner, so that means the chance of it landing on any color is the same or equal. However, now I'm going to show you an unfair spinner, and you'll be able to see why it's unfair very easily. Look at that. Here's half of it, and there are not equal parts here. Here's one half. There's another section, and another section. So while there are 4 parts, just like the other spinner, they're not equal parts. So if these were my colors again, red, yellow, blue, and green, red would have a greater chance because it's taking up more space in the circle. So the chances of the clip landing on red once it's flicked, so once you flick the clip, it could land on red more because it covers a greater portion of the circle. So that's how we use spinners in probability. So this is why I'd like you to take some time to just read through the slides. Let's continue. Another fun thing to do is roll dice, and we will do that together at some point. That will be a fun activity to do together because dice are cubes. We know that from our geometric solids, and they have 6 faces. Now, on each face of a die or dice, when there are 2 of them, you have different numbers, and that's why they make them often tools for board games. They make it fair so that when somebody rolls the dice, it can only land on one side, and that is the number that we use. And each side has its own numbers. But once you take those dice and you give them a toss and you roll, are you in control of where they land? No, it's not up to you at that point, so it's random. So the likelihood is they could land on any one of those faces and reveal any number, okay? So that's why there's no guarantee when you play a game. All right, let's move on now. I've included 2 scenarios that I'd like you to read on your own. One is about Lucy, who collects different colored erasers. And following that, there are just 4 questions I want you to think about and answer orally. That means just out loud. You don't have to copy these down or write them. And the second scenario involving probability is about Greg, who makes a spinner of his favorite foods. And you can see that here, right? He has a full circle, but he only has 3 foods on his circle. So that tells you something interesting about his spinner. And he has a hamburger as one of his favorite lunch foods, a hot dog as one of his favorite lunch foods, and pizza. And if you look where pizza is, it's kind of like this unfair spinner. Once you've read the scenario about Greg and his favorite lunch foods, you can go ahead and answer the 4 questions because they will really help you along with the other work. All right, so once again, boys and girls, enjoy the PowerPoint slides on probability. It's a tool there for you to use while you're doing your other probability work. You can always go back. All right, so now I'm just going to call up your probability activity on the computer here. 1 second. Here we go. And your probability activity is all about using marbles. So you can see that here. I'm going to try to make that a little closer for you. So you have some marbles at the top of the page, and count the marbles first and then distinguish between the different colors, all right? So it says the marbles pictured below are gray, white, and black. They are placed in a bag, and one is drawn at random. And you remember what random means. That means without you choosing or deciding, just by picking without knowing. So the first question asks, which color marble is least likely to be drawn from the bag? So which of those marbles has the least chance of being chosen? So think about it. If there's only a marble that has of one color in there, it has probably the least chance. Which color would that be? The colored marble that's in there the most has a greater chance. Now, we're not going to go through every question, but I will go through number 2 with you. What is the probability of drawing the black marble from the bag? You would answer that with either these words. So listen up, this is important. Likely or unlikely. Now, if it's really not likely, you would say even very unlikely. So you can say likely, unlikely, very likely, very unlikely. That means the chances of it happening are not very good. All right, and let's just go to number 3. What is the probability of drawing a gray marble? So again, look at how many gray marbles there are compared to the rest, and you would say likely, very likely, not likely, very unlikely. All right? So you can go ahead and complete that sheet, again, using the information from the PowerPoint and this video. I'm just going to call up the next sheet on probability for you. And it also involves marbles, but this time you will be deciding on the colors. Well, they will be assigned to you, but you will color them. Color 4 marbles red, 3 marbles green, 1 marble yellow, and 1 marble blue. So go ahead and first count the amount of marbles, then decide based on which colors they're asking you to color them, and then you can answer the question. So the marbles you colored above are placed into a bag. 1 is drawn at random, so just like the last activity. Question number 1 asks, which color marble is most likely to be drawn from the bag? So again, if it's most likely, it's going to be the color that there is more of, all right? And let's just try number 2 together. What is the probability of drawing the green marble from the bag? The green marble. So let's go back up to the instructions, and there are 3 green marbles. So is it unlikely, very likely, or somewhat likely? It's likely. It can happen because there are 3 in there, okay? So enjoy these because these are kind of like a game. Probability is a lot of fun. There's some guessing involved, and it's always exciting to see what happens in the end. All right, now we're going to move on from probability because I know that was a lot of information, but I want to give you everything you need in your schema so that you can do this work well and, more importantly, be ready for September. Okay, so have fun with probability, and we'll be exploring more of that together. I quickly want to just mention the readings that the grade 1s and the 2s are getting. Grade 2s, let's start with your reading because one of your focuses this year was to look at fairy tales. You are going to be reading a story for language comprehension called Jack and the Giant Pepper. That's right, you heard correctly, Jack and the Giant Pepper. Not Jack and the Beanstalk, but there are some similarities. So please look out for that, okay? And instead, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I'll tell you now that instead of having a cow, Jack has a different animal, and his name is Archibald. I won't tell you the type of animal he is, but his name's Archibald because you may have difficulty recognizing that name because it's not one that we've ever read in a story this year. And you'll figure out what kind of animal Archibald is, and some of the details are similar and some are very different than the traditional fairy tale Jack and the Beanstalk. And let me just get the grade 1 reading. The grade 1 reading is all about summer and beaches. It's called A Perfect Beach Hat. And a couple of words in the reading. The character's name is Kimmy. Again, I don't think we've met a Kimmy either in our reading. So there's an I-E at the end of Kimmy. There could be a Y as well. Some people spell it with a Y, but in this case it's an I-E, which makes that long E sound. And there were a couple of words in there. Oh, here we go. Castle. Castle has a silent T, so look out for that. We don't pronounce that. There was one more word in there that I wanted to talk about with you. Building. Building. There's that U that we don't pronounce. So building. Look out for that. Building. So a couple of words to give you a head start. And the reason I'm doing that for both readings is because what are we doing? We're building stamina. That's right. We're trying to get from the beginning of a reading to the end fluidly and fluently, trying to do it all on our own as much as possible, okay? So enjoy those readings. And a couple of other things before we say goodbye. I'm giving you just a little bit of a follow-up on antonyms as well, all right? Those mean opposite meanings. So words that are opposites are called antonyms. And this should be a fun activity for you. And I believe that is all of the files that you are going to receive for today, tomorrow, and through the weekend to work on. And I finally wanted to talk to you about Maya. So I wish I had different news. I wish I could say that there was some growth, but there wasn't. And I don't know why. So this is almost like up to probability in a way. But what I'm going to do now is I just want to investigate. And I promise this is not going to hurt Maya at all because we're going to plant again. But what I would like to do is just look at the seeds to actually see if anything did happen. Now, by now, we should have seen some growth. And I can't explain why we haven't, but I'm just going to get in there with a fork to find those seeds. Oh, here they are. Oh, it looks like they've gotten still moist in here from being watered, and the soil looks very rich. It looks great. And sorry, I keep losing the seed. It keeps jumping back into the soil. So in this case, I'm going to take my spoon out. Oh, I think this is one. Yes, here we go. And it looks like, I know that's hard to see. Can you see? That's a seed covered in there, and it didn't split. So that tells us that something went wrong. Now, it could have been the seeds. Maybe they were too deep. Maybe they just is it possible that they got too much water? But we know that there was no growth. But the soil does look rich and healthy. So what we will do, and it smells great too, it smells like great gardening soil. However, we didn't see any growth. So we will plant together as well, and Maya will get a fresh new start. And when she starts growing, we might be well into the summer, but I promise I will send you either pictures or videos of her when she begins to bloom. And we will also work on some probability together, some fun exercises where we all close our eyes and choose and decide what we pick to help us understand this new math concept. All right, at this time, I would like to say goodbye and wish you a wonderful weekend ahead. Please be safe. Hopefully we get some more of this wonderful weather. I want to feel better, so I'm going to continue drinking my tea now. And when I see you next, I hope I'm stronger and healthier, and we will have some fun together next week. Have a terrific weekend, my friends. See you soon.